The transport ship lurched violently as plasma fire tore through its starboard hull. Jake Collins gripped the armrest of his seat, knuckles white, watching debris scatter into the void through the widening breach. He was 19 years old, barely 3 months out of the colony academies on Europa, and now he was going to die in the middle of nowhere. The other humans in the holding bay screamed as gravity failed. 23 colonists, all bound for the mining settlement on Kepler. 442b now found themselves prisoners of the Zitharian Empire. The insectoid aliens had ambushed their civilian vessel without warning, without mercy, and without explanation. Jake's older brother Nathan floated nearby, his face pale with terror. Their sister Lisa clutched a support beam, tears streaming sideways in zero gravity. The Collins family had pooled their savings for this trip, desperate to escape the overcrowded Earth colonies. Now they would never see their new home. The ship shuddered again as magnetic clamps locked onto the hull. Through the viewport, Jake saw the massive Zitharian cruiser, its organic curves pulsing with bioluminescent veins. The vessel looked alive, hungry, waiting to consume them whole. Metal groaned as the airlock cycled open. Cytharian soldiers poured through, their chitinous armor gleaming under harsh red lights. Each stood 7 feet tall with 4 arms ending in serrated claws. Their compound eyes reflected no emotion, no humanity, nothing but cold efficiency. The lead soldier barked commands in their clicking language. A translation device crackled to life, spewing harsh syllables. You will comply. Resistance brings immediate termination. The colonists were herded into the Zitharian ship like cattle. Jake tried to stay close to his siblings, but the soldiers separated them with brutal efficiency. Nathan shouted in protest and received a blow that sent him sprawling across the deck. Lisa screamed his name. They were pushed through corridors that seemed to breathe, walls undulating with organic technology far beyond human comprehension. The air tasted wrong, thick with chemicals that burned Jake's lungs. Other prisoners lined the walls, humans from different raids, their eyes hollow with despair. The procession stopped at a massive chamber. The ceiling stretched impossibly high, disappearing into darkness. At the center stood a throne crafted from some crystalline material that seemed to pulse with inner light, and upon that throne sat the Zitharian queen. She was enormous, easily 12 feet tall, her carapace adorned with intricate patterns that glowed softly. Unlike her soldiers, she possessed 6 arms, each moving with hypnotic grace. Her crown was organic, growing directly from her skull in spiraling horns that caught the light. But her eyes, those multifaceted eyes, held an intelligence that terrified Jake more than any weapon. The queen rose slowly, surveying the captives with predatory interest. She descended from her throne, each step deliberate, commanding. The soldiers forced the prisoners to their knees. Jake's heart hammered as she approached. The queen moved along the line, examining each human with clinical detachment. She paused at an older man, tilted her head, then moved on. She stopped before a young woman, studied her face, then continued. Then she reached Jake. The queen leaned down, her alien features inches from his face. Jake could smell something sweet and poisonous on her breath. Her mandibles clicked softly as she circled him, one clawed hand lifting his chin with surprising gentleness. She straightened, turning to address her court in their native tongue. The translator struggled with her words, finally rendering them in cold, mechanical English. "He will be mine," the alien queen said, indicating the youngest human. The throne room erupted in clicking sounds, the Zitharan equivalent of shocked murmurs. Jake's blood turned to ice as every compound eye in the chamber focused on him. Nathan struggled against the guards holding him, shouting protests that were quickly silenced by a strike to his stomach. Lisa sobbed openly, reaching toward her younger brother even as soldiers pulled her back. The queen raised one of her 6 hands, and silence fell instantly. She spoke again, her voice carrying an authority that transcended species. The translator crackled. "This one possesses qualities of interest. He will undergo the bonding ceremony. The others will be processed for labor assignments." Jake found his voice, though it came out as barely a whisper. "What does that mean? What are you going to do to me?" The Queen's head tilted at an unnatural angle, her mandibles spreading in what might have been a smile. "You will understand soon, young human. You should feel honored. No human has ever been chosen for this purpose." Two elite guards, distinguished by golden markings on their armor, seized Jake by the arms and lifted him effortlessly. He kicked and struggled, but their grip was like iron. They dragged him toward a corridor branching off from the throne room, while the other prisoners were herded in different directions. "Jake!" Nathan's voice echoed through the chamber, raw with desperation. "Don't hurt him! Take me instead." The Queen didn't even glance back. "Your brother's courage is admirable but irrelevant. The choice has been made." Jake was pulled through passages that seemed to exist outside normal geometry. The walls glowed with patterns that hurt his eyes when he looked directly at them. They passed chambers where he glimpsed other humans, some working under guard, others strapped to tables surrounded by incomprehensible machinery. Their screams followed him down the corridor. The guards brought him to a circular room with a domed ceiling that displayed the stars outside. At the center stood a platform surrounded by metallic pillars covered in organic tendrils. The technology looked both ancient and impossibly advanced, grown rather than built. The Queen entered behind them, her presence filling the space. She dismissed the guards with a gesture, and suddenly Jake was alone with her. He backed away until his shoulders hit the wall. "Please," he said, hating how his voice shook, "I don't understand what you want from me. I'm nobody, just a colonist. My family needs me." The Queen approached slowly, her movements flowing like water. "You misunderstand your situation, young one. This is not punishment. Among my people, to be chosen by the Queen is the highest honor imaginable." "I'm not one of your people," Jake shot back, finding a spark of defiance. "I'm human." "Yes," the Queen replied, and for the first time, something like emotion entered her alien voice. "That is precisely why you are valuable. For 3 generations, my species has conquered system after system. We have absorbed countless civilizations, taken what we needed, and moved on. But humans, you are different." She gestured, and holographic displays materialized around them. Jake saw images of human soldiers fighting against impossible odds, colonists surviving in environments that should have killed them, scientists making breakthrough after breakthrough even under occupation. "Humanity refuses to break," the Queen continued. "You adapt, you innovate, you survive when logic says you should perish. Your species has become a problem for the Empire. But I have been studying you, learning your patterns, understanding what drives you." Jake's mind raced, trying to understand. "So, what, you're going to dissect me, study my brain?" The Queen's mandibles clicked in what he was beginning to recognize as amusement. "Nothing so crude. I am going to bond with you, young human. Your people have a word for it, though it fails to capture the full complexity. You would call it marriage." The word hit Jake like a physical blow. "That's insane." "You can't be serious." "I am quite serious," the Queen replied, moving closer. "Through you, I will understand humanity on a level no Zitharian has achieved. Through our bond, I will learn to think as humans think, to see as humans see. And in time, this knowledge will allow me to either unite our species or destroy yours completely. The choice will be yours to influence." Jake's legs felt weak. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the floor. "Why me specifically? I'm the youngest person on that ship. I haven't even lived yet." The Queen settled onto the floor across from him with surprising grace for such a large creature. "That is exactly why. You are not yet fully formed by your culture's rigid expectations. Your mind remains adaptable, capable of accepting new realities. An older human would resist until their mind shattered. You might actually survive the process." "And if I refuse?" The Queen's eyes seemed to dim slightly. "Then you will be processed like the others. Manual labor until your body fails, which for humans typically takes between 2 and 5 of your years in our facilities. Your siblings will suffer the same fate. However, if you accept the bonding, I will grant them placement in our agricultural colonies. The work is difficult but not deadly, and they will be together." Jake closed his eyes, fighting back tears. It wasn't really a choice at all. He thought of Nathan, who had always protected him growing up. He thought of Lisa, who used to read him stories about brave heroes who saved everyone. Now he had to be that hero, even though he felt like a terrified child. "How long do I have to decide?" he asked quietly. "The ceremony begins in 1 hour," the Queen said. "I suggest you use that time to compose yourself. What happens next will change you forever, young human. There is no returning to who you were before." She rose and moved toward the door, then paused. "Your name? I should know your name." "Jake," he whispered. "Jake Collins." The Queen's mandibles moved in that unsettling smile again. "Jake Collins. Remember that name? Hold onto it tightly. You will need it in the days to come. I am Queen Zythera, sovereign of the Zytherian Empire, commander of 6 fleets, and soon to be your bonded mate. Rest. Now, your new life begins shortly." She left him alone in the chamber, beneath the stars, and Jake Collins began to cry. Jake had stopped crying by the time the guards returned. He sat on the platform at the room's center, his mind numb from processing impossible choices. The guards, the same 2 with golden markings, said nothing as they attached thin metallic bands to his wrists and ankles. The bands felt warm, almost alive against his skin. Queen Zythera entered wearing different attire, robes that shimmered with colors Jake had no names for. She carried something that resembled a crown, but it writhed with organic filaments that reached toward him even from across the room. "The bonding device," she explained, noting his horrified stare. "It will establish a neural link between us. You will feel what I feel, know what I know, and I will experience the same from you. There'll be no secrets between us, Jake Collins. No lies, no hidden thoughts. Complete transparency." Jake's stomach churned. "That sounds like torture." "Perhaps at first," Zythera admitted. "Our minds are not meant to merge. The initial connection will be painful for both of us. But over time, we will adapt. You will learn to shield some thoughts, and I will learn to respect those boundaries. Or we will both go mad. The uncertainty is part of why this has never been attempted with a human before." "That's supposed to comfort me?" Jake asked bitterly. Zythera moved closer, and Jake noticed something he hadn't seen before. Beneath her alien features, in the way she held herself, there was uncertainty. The mighty Queen was nervous. "I do not offer comfort," she said. "I offer truth. This terrifies me as much as it terrifies you. To open my mind to another being, especially one from a species we have conquered, goes against every instinct. But the alternative is eternal war. Humanity will never stop fighting, and eventually they will develop weapons that could threaten even the Empire. This is my attempt to find another path." Jake stood up slowly. "You're betting everything on the hope that understanding humans will somehow change the situation? I am betting that if one Zytharian can truly understand one human, perhaps others can follow. Perhaps we can find common ground instead of mutual destruction." "And if it doesn't work?" Zythera's mandibles clicked softly. "Then at least we tried something different before the inevitable end." She raised the crown-like device. The filaments stretched toward Jake, sensing his presence. He wanted to run, to fight, to do anything except stand there and let this happen. But Nathan's face flashed in his mind, and Lisa's, and all the other humans suffering in Zytharian facilities across the galaxy. "Do it," Jake said, forcing his voice steady. "Before I change my mind." Zythera placed the device on his head. The filaments immediately dove into his scalp, not painfully but with an invasive pressure that made him gasp. She placed a matching crown on herself, and the moment she did, Jake's world exploded. Pain wasn't the right word for what he experienced. It was more like his entire sense of self was being pulled apart and examined piece by piece. He felt Zythera's presence in his mind, vast and ancient and utterly alien. Her thoughts moved in patterns he couldn't follow. Her emotions registered on spectrums he couldn't perceive. But beneath it all, he felt her fear. The mighty Queen was absolutely terrified. And she felt his determination, his fierce love for his siblings, his desperate hope that this nightmare might somehow lead to something better. She felt his youth, his inexperience, and was startled by how much raw potential existed in such an unformed mind. They stood frozen, locked in mental combat and cooperation simultaneously, each trying to understand the other while maintaining their own identity. Jake saw flashes of Zythera's memories, a childhood among her hive in crystalline caves, rising through ranks by demonstrating superior intelligence and tactical skill, the day she became queen and felt the weight of her entire species rest on her shoulders. Zythera saw Jake's life on Europa, playing in the ice fields with his siblings, the poverty that drove his family to gamble everything on a colony ship, his secret dreams of becoming an engineer, his fear that he would never be good enough. Time lost meaning. They could have been connected for seconds or hours, but gradually the chaos began to settle. Their minds found a rhythm, a way to coexist in the same mental space without destroying each other. When they finally pulled apart, both staggered. Jake's nose was bleeding, and Zythera's carapace had paled to an unhealthy shade. They stood on opposite sides of the platform, both breathing heavily. That was, Zythera paused, searching for words, more intense than predicted. Jake wiped the blood from his face with a shaking hand. I saw your memories. You've killed millions. Yes, Zythera replied, without shame. And you saw why. The expansion is not cruelty for its own sake. My species requires certain resources to survive, resources that are scarce in our home systems. Every world we conquer is a calculation of our survival versus theirs. That doesn't make it right, Jake said, anger cutting through his exhaustion. No, Zythera agreed, and Jake was shocked to feel genuine regret through their new connection. But righteousness is a luxury afforded to those who are not desperate. You felt my people's hunger, Jake Collins. We expand or we die. Then find another way, Jake shouted, his voice echoing in the chamber. Humans would have helped you. We solve impossible problems when we work together, but instead you attacked us, enslaved us, and now you want to bond with me like that makes up for everything. Zythera's mandibles spread wide, a gesture Jake now understood as distress. You think I have not considered this? You think I enjoy sending my soldiers to die conquering worlds? I inherited an empire built on war, and I am trying to find a path to something else. That is why you are here. Jake felt the sincerity of her words through their bond, and it made everything more complicated. She wasn't lying. She genuinely believed this was necessary, that somehow understanding humanity through him would lead to peace. But the road to hell was paved with good intentions. What happens now? He asked, suddenly exhausted. Now we rest, Zythera said, her voice softer. The initial bonding is complete, but it will continue to develop over the coming days. We will need to spend significant time together for the connection to stabilize. You will stay in quarters adjacent to mine. You will dine with me, attend my councils, and accompany me throughout my daily activities. Like a pet? Jake asked bitterly. Like a consort, Zythera corrected. You will have freedom of movement within certain sections of the ship. You may communicate with your siblings regularly, and you will have access to our libraries, our technology, anything you wish to learn. I suspect you will be surprised by how much knowledge you absorb through our bond. She was right. Even now, Jake found himself understanding Cytherian language fragments, recognizing the purposes of technologies he'd never seen before. It was disorienting and fascinating in equal measure. Come, Zythera said, gesturing toward a door that hadn't been there before. Let me show you where you will live. Tomorrow, the real work begins. Jake followed her, because what choice did he have? But as they walked through corridors that now seemed slightly less alien, he made himself a promise. If he was going to be bonded to the Zytherian queen, if he was going to have access to her thoughts and her empire's secrets, then he was going to use that position to help humanity. Somehow, some way, he would turn this nightmare into an advantage. Zythera glanced back at him, and Jake realized she had felt that thought through their bond. Their eyes met, and Jake saw something unexpected in her alien gaze. Respect. You are already planning rebellion, she observed, her tone unreadable. Is that a problem? Jake challenged. Her mandibles clicked in that unsettling smile. Not at all. I would be disappointed if you simply accepted your fate. The bond works both ways, Jake Collins. You will influence me as much as I influence you. That is the entire purpose. She turned and continued walking, leaving Jake to wonder what kind of game he had just agreed to play, and whether he had any chance of winning. The quarters Zythera provided were larger than Jake's entire family apartment on Europa. The walls shifted colours based on ambient light. Furniture grew from the floor when needed, and the viewport displayed any location in the galaxy he desired. It was a gilded cage, beautiful and suffocating. Jake spent his first night unable to sleep, feeling Zythera's presence constantly at the edge of his consciousness. She wasn't actively in his thoughts, but he knew she was there, a vast alien intelligence just beyond a mental door he hadn't learned to close yet. Occasionally, he felt flashes of her emotions, surprise and curiosity, and something that might have been loneliness. Morning came. Though the cycle was arbitrary on a ship travelling faster than light, guards arrived to escort him to breakfast with the Queen. They led him through sections of the ship where other Zitharians stopped to stare. News of the bonding had apparently spread quickly, and Jake could feel their hostility even without a mental connection. The dining hall was surprisingly intimate, just a table for two overlooking a simulated garden. Zythera was already there, surrounded by holographic displays showing various military reports. She dismissed them as Jake entered. "Sit," she commanded, then added in a softer tone, "Please." The food was a mixture of human and Zytharian dishes. Jake was surprised to see eggs, toast, and something that looked like bacon. Zythera noticed his expression through their bond. "We have human agricultural specialists in our science division," she explained. "I requested they prepare foods you would find familiar. I understand this situation is difficult enough without adding starvation to your concerns." Jake sat and picked up a fork, examining it suspiciously. "Is it safe?" "I am not trying to poison you, Jake Collins. Dead, you are useless to me. Healthy and cooperative, you are potentially invaluable." He took a bite. It tasted like real eggs, which meant it probably came from actual chickens somewhere on this nightmare ship. The thought made him sick, but he was too hungry to care. "I spoke with your siblings this morning," Zythera said casually, cutting into something that resembled meat but definitely wasn't. "They are being transferred to Agricultural Colony 7. The work is supervised cultivation of food crops. They will have adequate housing, regular meals, and limited recreation time. By Cytharian standards, this is quite generous." Jake's head snapped up. "You're really doing it? Keeping your word?" "I keep all my words," Zythera replied, a hint of offence in her voice. "Through our bond you will come to understand that Zitharian honour is absolute. We do not lie to our bonded mates. It would be like lying to ourselves." "Can I see them?" "Before they're transferred." Zythera considered this while Jake felt her thoughts through their connection. She was weighing the risk of letting him have extended contact with other humans against the benefit of proving she could be trusted. Finally, she nodded. "After breakfast, 1 hour, supervised. They need to see you are well, and you need to say your farewells. It will help you focus on your duties here without constant worry." "Duties?" Jake asked. "What exactly do you expect from me?" Zythera set down her utensils and fixed him with her compound eyes. "I expect you to accompany me to today's strategy council. The Fifth Fleet has encountered unexpected resistance in the Deneb sector, human resistance specifically. I want you to observe how we analyze and respond to your species' tactics. Through the bond, your unconscious reactions will help me understand what humans think when they plan their defenses." Jake's stomach twisted. "You want to use me to kill humans more efficiently." "I want to use you to end the conflict more efficiently," Zythera corrected. "Every day this war continues, both our species lose thousands of lives. If understanding your perspective helps me predict human strategies, I can offer more precise terms of surrender that they might actually accept. Terms that preserve human autonomy in exchange for resource sharing." "Humans don't surrender," Jake said flatly. "Exactly my point," Zythera replied, frustration bleeding through their bond. "Your species would rather die fighting than accept any terms of submission. It is simultaneously admirable and infuriating. But perhaps if the terms came from someone who understood human values, who could frame them in ways that preserve your dignity, your people might actually listen. Jake pushed his plate away, appetite gone. So I'm supposed to be your translator? Help you convince humans to give up? You are supposed to help me find a solution where both species survive, Zythera said firmly. Is that not better than mutual extinction? 'Cause that is where this is heading, Jake. You felt my people's desperation through our bond. We cannot stop expanding. And humans cannot stop resisting. Eventually someone will deploy weapons that make entire systems uninhabitable. Is your pride worth that? She had a point, and Jake hated that he could feel the genuine concern behind her words. Zythera wasn't trying to manipulate him. She actually believed what she was saying. That didn't make it right, but it made it harder to simply hate her. I'll go to your council, he said quietly, but I'm not making any promises about helping you. Fair enough, Zythera replied, and Jake felt a wave of satisfaction from her. She had expected more resistance, had prepared arguments he never forced her to use. He had capitulated too easily, given her a victory she didn't fully earn. Jake realized he needed to be smarter about this. The bond worked both ways, which meant she could feel his emotions as clearly as he felt hers. He needed to learn to control what he broadcast, to hide his true thoughts while seeming cooperative. It would be like playing poker with someone who could see your cards, except the stakes were the future of humanity. After breakfast, guards escorted Jake to a small meeting room where Nathan and Lisa waited. The moment they saw him, Lisa burst into tears and rushed forward. Nathan was right behind her. And suddenly Jake was wrapped in the arms of his siblings, all three of them crying. "Are you okay?" Nathan demanded, pulling back to examine Jake's face. "Did they hurt you? What did they do to you?" Jake touched the band around his wrist, now invisible beneath his skin, but still present. "It's complicated. I'm fine, physically, but I've been bonded to the Queen. It's a mental connection, and it's permanent." Lisa's eyes went wide. "What does that mean?" "It means I can feel her thoughts and emotions, and she can feel mine. We're connected now for life, probably." But she kept her word. "You're being transferred to an agricultural colony. The work will be hard, but not deadly. You'll be together." Nathan's jaw clenched. "We're not leaving you here alone." "You don't have a choice," Jake said softly. "None of us do. But this might actually be good. If I can influence her decisions, if I can use this bond to help humanity, then maybe something positive comes from this nightmare." "You sound like you're giving up," Nathan accused. "I sound like I'm adapting," Jake corrected. "I'm 19, Nathan. A week ago, my biggest worry was passing my engineering exams. Now I'm mentally bonded to an alien queen who commands 6 fleets. I'm terrified and angry and completely overwhelmed. But I'm not giving up. I'm just figuring out how to fight from the inside instead of the outside." Lisa touched his face gently. "You've always been the smart one. If anyone can figure this out, it's you." They spent the rest of the hour sharing memories, making promises to stay in contact, and pretending their separation was temporary. When the guards came to collect Jake, the goodbyes were agonizing. Nathan gripped his shoulders hard enough to bruise. "Stay alive," he whispered. "Whatever it takes, little brother. Stay alive and stay you." Jake nodded, not trusting his voice. He watched his siblings leave, escorted by different guards toward the transport bays. Then he was alone again with his golden-marked escorts, being led deeper into the ship toward the Strategy Council. The council chamber was massive, with holographic displays showing fleet positions across dozens of systems. 20 Zetharian military leaders stood around a central table, their carapaces marked with rank insignia. Jake was just beginning to understand through his bond with Zythera. They all turned to stare as he entered. Zythera sat at the head of the table, regal and commanding. She gestured to a seat beside her. "Councillors, this is Jake Collins, my bonded mate. He will be observing our proceedings. Treat him with the respect due to his position." The hostility in the room was palpable. Several councillors' mandibles clicked in what Jake now recognized as disapproval. One particularly large Zitharian, his carapace scarred from obvious combat, spoke up. "Your Majesty, with respect, bringing a human to strategic planning is dangerous. He could use the bond to feed information to resistance cells." "Commander Vrath," Zythera replied coldly, "the bond does not work that way. He cannot transmit information telepathically. His presence here serves my purposes, not yours to question." Jake sat in the indicated seat, feeling dozens of alien eyes on him. Through his bond with Zythera, he felt her confidence, her absolute certainty in her decision. She was using him already, letting his presence unsettle her council, watching how they reacted to having a human in their midst. "Now," Zythera continued, activating the central display, "let us discuss the situation in the Deneb sector. The human resistance there has proven far more resourceful than anticipated." As they began analyzing battle reports, Jake realized he was watching humans outsmart Zytharian forces through guerrilla tactics and desperate ingenuity. He felt a fierce surge of pride, and through the bond, he knew Zythera felt it too. She glanced at him, and their eyes met. In that moment, Jake understood the game they were really playing. She was testing him, seeing if he could watch humans die and maintain his composure. She was measuring his loyalty, his limits, his potential value. And Jake realized that every emotion he felt, every reaction he had, was giving her exactly what she wanted: insight into the human mind. He had agreed to be her weapon against his own species, and he didn't know if he was strong enough to resist becoming exactly that. 3 weeks passed in a strange rhythm that Jake couldn't quite classify as captivity or partnership. He attended every council meeting, watched Zitharian forces adapt their tactics based on insights Zythera gleaned from his unconscious reactions, and felt sick every time human resistance cells fell to strategies informed by his presence. The bond grew stronger daily, until Jake could sometimes predict Zythera's thoughts before she spoke them. But something unexpected was happening. The bond wasn't just changing Jake, it was changing Zythera too. It started small. During one council meeting, Commander Vrath proposed bombarding a human agricultural settlement from orbit to force a nearby resistance cell to reveal their location. It was a standard Zitharian tactic. Brutal but effective, Jake had felt horror spike through him before he could suppress it. Through the bond, Zythera felt it too. The visceral revulsion at the thought of children and farmers vaporized as a negotiating tactic. She paused mid-sentence, her mandibles twitching in discomfort. "No," she had said quietly, "we will use ground forces instead. Deploy non-lethal suppression technology first." The council had been stunned. Such mercy was unprecedented, Wrath had argued, but Zythera shut him down with a look that could have melted steel. Later, in her quarters, she had turned to Jake with an expression he was learning to read. "I felt your horror as if it were my own," she said. "I have ordered such bombardments 1,000 times, but I never understood what it meant until I felt it through your emotions. How do humans bear this, knowing that such suffering exists?" "We try to stop it," Jake had replied. "That's what makes us different from you." Now, a month into their bond, Zythera was calling an unprecedented summit. She had invited human resistance leaders to negotiate under a flag of truce, something the Zytharian Empire had never done before. Her council was divided, many believing she had been corrupted by her bond with a human. Jake stood beside her throne as representatives arrived via secure transport. He recognized some of them from intercepted communications, leaders of cells that had become legendary. Captain Elena Martinez, who had destroyed an entire Zytharian supply depot with just 12 soldiers. Dr. Richard Hayes, who had developed the first partially effective shield against Cytharian plasma weapons. And General Patricia Carson, Supreme Commander of what remained of Earth's scattered military forces. They entered the chamber with weapons holstered but hands ready, their eyes scanning for threats. When they saw Jake standing beside the Zytharian Queen, their expressions shifted from wariness to confusion to barely contained rage. "Jake Collins," General Carson said, her voice ice cold, "we received your family's distress signal. We thought you were dead or enslaved. Instead, you're standing beside the enemy, like some kind of consort. Jake felt Zythera's flash of anger through the bond, but he spoke before she could. I am enslaved, General. Just in a more complicated way than you imagined. But that's not why we're here. Then why are we here? Elena demanded. The message said the Queen wanted to discuss terms. Cytharians don't negotiate. They conquer, or they die trying. Zythera rose from her throne, her presence commanding immediate attention. You are here because the war between our species is approaching a critical threshold. Within 6 months, both sides will deploy weapons that render entire systems uninhabitable. I have seen the projections. In 2 years, both Earth and the Cytharian home worlds will be ruins. In 5 years, both species will be extinct. Then we'll die fighting, General Carson said firmly. Better extinction than slavery. Spoken like someone who hasn't felt her people's hunger, Zythera replied, and Jake heard his own arguments echoed in her words. My species is not evil, General. We are desperate. Our home systems are resource poor, and our population has outgrown our ability to sustain it. We expand, or we starve. It is not a choice, it is a mathematical certainty. Dr. Hayes stepped forward, his scientific mind engaging with the problem. Why not ask for help instead of taking what you need by force? Would you have helped? Zythera challenged. If we had arrived at Earth peacefully, explained our situation, and asked for access to resources in exchange for technology, would humanity have agreed? They all knew the answer. Humanity had been too divided, too suspicious, too protective of its own interests, to extend genuine aid to an alien species in need. Maybe not at first, Jake spoke up, drawing everyone's attention. But humans are capable of empathy once we understand a situation. If you had given us a chance, if you had shown us your people's suffering instead of your military power, some humans would have helped, and once some helped, others would have followed. Extera turned to him, and through their bond, he felt her considering his words with genuine openness. You truly believe this? I've been inside your mind for a month, Jake said. I felt your people's desperation, their fear of extinction. If I can understand and empathize with that, other humans can too. But you have to give us the chance. General Carson laughed bitterly. It's too late for that. You've killed millions of us, destroyed our colonies, enslaved our people. We're supposed to just forgive that because you were hungry? No, Zythera said, and her voice carried genuine sorrow that shocked the human delegates. Forgiveness may be impossible, but survival requires us to find a path beyond our hatred. That is why I propose the following treaty. Holographic displays materialized, showing the terms. Jake read them with growing surprise. They were far more generous than any Zytharian offer before. The Empire would withdraw from all occupied human worlds, except 3, which would become joint research colonies. Humans would maintain sovereignty over their own systems, but would share specific resources the Zytharians needed most. In exchange, humanity would receive Zytharian technology for faster-than-light travel, advanced medicine, and agricultural systems that could feed billions. You're offering to give up 90% of what you've conquered, Elena said, disbelief clear in her voice. Why? Zythera looked at Jake, and he felt her emotions through their bond. Shame, regret, hope, and something that might have been affection. Because my bonded mate has shown me that conquest is not the only path forward. Because I have felt human emotions as if they were my own, and I can no longer order the deaths of millions without understanding the weight of each life lost. Because Jake Collins has corrupted me with his humanity, and I find I prefer this corruption to my former certainty. The throne room fell silent. Jake felt tears on his cheeks and didn't bother to hide them. Through the bond, he felt Zythera's surprise at her own words, her realization that the bond had changed her more profoundly than she had intended. This is a trick, General Carson said, but her voice lacked conviction. You're buying time to develop new weapons. Then include inspection protocols in the treaty, Zythera replied. Allow human observers on our military research stations. Let us prove our sincerity through transparency. Dr. Hayes was studying the technical specifications in the treaty documents. These agricultural systems could solve Earth's food crisis. We could feed 10 billion people with this technology. And your FTL systems could let us spread to 100 new worlds, Eleanor added slowly. We wouldn't have to fight over scarce resources if we had the space to expand. General Carson looked between the Queen and Jake, her tactical mind processing the implications. You really think this could work? That we could go from total war to cooperation just like that? No, Jake said honestly. It will take years, probably decades. There will be setbacks and violence and groups on both sides who refuse to accept peace. But the alternative is extinction for both our species. At least this gives us a chance. The general turned to Zythera. If we agree to this treaty, what happens to the humans you've already enslaved? They will be freed, Zythera said immediately. Not overnight, as the logistics are complex, but within 6 months, every human in Zytharian custody will be returned to human territory. Those who wish to remain in joint colonies may do so, but the choice will be theirs. And what about you? Carson asked Jake directly. If we sign this treaty, will you be released from your bond? Jake looked at Zythera, and through their connection, he felt her vulnerability. She was terrified he would say yes, would demand his freedom the moment it became possible. But Jake had learned something important during his month bonded to the alien queen. The bond can't be broken without killing both of us, he said. But even if it could, I don't think I would. Someone needs to stand between our species to help both sides understand each other. That's what the bond allows me to do. I can be humanity's voice in the Zytharian Empire and Zythera's voice to humanity. It's not the life I would have chosen, but it might be the life that matters most. Zythera's emotions flooded through their connection, gratitude and relief, and something deeper that Jake wasn't ready to name yet. She placed one of her 6 hands gently on his shoulder, a gesture of respect and partnership that made several council members' mandibles click in surprise. General Carson studied them both for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I'll take this proposal to what's left of Earth's government. I can't promise they'll accept, but I'll advocate for it. If even half of what you've shown me today is genuine, this could save both our species. The other human delegates added their support, cautious but willing to try. As they left to begin the complex work of diplomacy, Jake felt exhaustion wash over him. He had spent a month as a weapon against his own people, and now he might have found a way to turn that weapon into something else. Entirely, Zythera dismissed her counsel and led Jake back to their quarters. In the privacy of the space they increasingly shared, she spoke softly. You could have demanded your freedom. They would have insisted on it as a condition of the treaty. I know, Jake replied, settling into a chair that had learned to adjust to human proportions. But freedom isn't worth much if I have to watch both our species destroy each other. At least this way, I can help prevent that. Zythera sat across from him, her alien features somehow familiar now. You have changed me, Jake Collins. A month ago, I would have scoffed at the idea that one human could influence the ruler of the Zytharian Empire. Now I find myself reconsidering centuries of strategy because you felt disgust at a battle plan. The bond works both ways, Jake said. I understand your people's desperation now. I've felt the fear that drives your expansion. It doesn't excuse what you've done, but it helps me understand why. That understanding might be the most important thing to come out of this whole nightmare. They sat in comfortable silence, 2 beings from different species bound together by technology and necessity, learning to coexist in the space between their civilizations. Outside the viewport, stars streamed past as the ship traveled toward an uncertain future. Jake thought about Nathan and Lisa, working in an agricultural colony, but alive and safe. He thought about the human delegates returning to their people with hope instead of just rage. He thought about Zytharian children who might now grow up without the constant fear of starvation. He was 19 years old, bonded to an alien queen, and somehow responsible for bridging the gap between 2 species that had been trying to destroy each other. It was terrifying and overwhelming and completely insane. But through his bond with Zythera, he felt her determination to make the treaty work, her genuine desire to find a better path. And he realized that maybe Just maybe they actually had a chance. "What happens now?" he asked quietly. Zythera's mandibles moved in what Jake had learned was her version of a smile. "Now we wait to see if your people accept the terms. And if they do, we spend the rest of our lives trying to prove that different species can not only coexist, but thrive together. It will not be easy, Jake Collins." "Nothing worth doing ever is," Jake replied, and felt her agreement resonate through their bond. They sat together as the stars flowed past, two unlikely partners bound by circumstance and choice, facing an uncertain future with fragile hope. The war wasn't over, and peace would take years to build, but for the first time since Jake had been captured, he felt something other than despair. He felt possibility, and that was enough to keep going.